You're listening to the Health Powered Productivity Podcast by RaderCo. I'm Marcey Rader, keynote speaker, consultant, and your host on high performance. In each bite-sized episode, I'll discuss topics like relentless prioritization, time and attention guardrails that stick, meeting makeovers, remote work, and sustainable habits you'll actually keep. Share this with your team or use it as pre-work before your next meeting. Happy 2026. Today I'm talking about reflections. I'm a big fan. And for most people, it's the missing piece. We set goals, we plan, we accomplish something great, and then we just keep moving forward without looking back to ask why we were able to do that, why something did work or didn't work. And doing these reflections with other people is the most powerful part. Now, I use our PowerPath method, and I've used this for years before it even had a name, and I've tweaked it along the way. But the reflections are part of the PowerPath Playbook and the online course, which you can find at helloraderco.com/playbook. And it organizes reflections, prioritization, and planning into annual, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily rhythms. And I'll cover prioritization and planning in the next episode. Today is just about reflections. I write all of mine in the PowerPath Playbook. You don't have to use our playbook. You can use your own system. You can use a notepad. The key is to write your priorities and have some key prompts so that you remember all the awesomeness that you are, and then you go back at year end and review, and it is gold. And I reflect annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily. And the daily is just a couple questions at the end of the day. But all of these are tracked in the playbook, so it makes it easy. But again, you can do this on whatever you want. So let me start with my annual reflections for 2025. I'm going to share my personal and work priorities, some of the prompts I use, and a few of my answers. I'm not going to go through every prompt because that would be long. And my purpose is that it sparks your own reflections. My hope is that you take these prompts, reflect yourself, and have conversations with a trusted colleague, a peer, a friend, a partner, or your family. So my top 3 personal priorities for 2025 were to simplify, and we simplified a lot at RaderCo. We moved to a new scheduling platform that helped us to automate a lot of our emails that were going to clients. We simplified proposals and cut noise. We simplified at home and decluttered. I edited my wardrobe, probably 3 bags of clothes. I'm actually chopping my hair very short in February. It used to be very short years ago. I feel more me with it short. And just quite frankly, I don't want to spend time doing my hair. I don't like it. And it always feels like a waste. And I would rather be doing something else. I also wanted more music and more quiet. And that sounds contradictory, but I tend to have AirPods in with the podcast or audiobook all the time. And if you know anything about StrengthsFinder, my number 1 is learner. And what I realized was, I was never just listening to music just to enjoy it. I was always feeling like I needed to read and learn. And so I'm going back, I just wanted to listen to more music and also just have quiet time to think instead of always having something in my ears. And also, just as a side note, your ear canals need to breathe. So if you're somebody that has AirPods in all the time, give your ear canals a break. And then third was mindful scheduling. And this was with friends and with work. And looking back, I can check the boxes on all of them. The music and quiet, I had progress, just not as much as I wanted. Work priorities, the book launch for Reclaim Your Workday. So proud of that. Triple check. Focus on consulting agreements and refresh all of my presentations. and finished that one. I did one presentation a month for almost the whole year. And then some other prompts. So we have our priorities, and I set those early in 2025, and I track those throughout the year. And everything about priorities, I'll talk about in the next episode, because that's on prioritization and planning. So with the prompts that we use for reflection, big wins, smartest decisions, lessons earned. I like earned because we earn our battle scars. Thank you, Lily Farrick, for that language. Also prompts like what didn't work well, what did work well, what I do differently, what I do less of, what I do more of, how I grew emotionally or spiritually, what I became or accomplished that I'm most proud of, who I helped the most, who helped me the most. There are a few more, but you can just choose, pick and choose. And I really try for annual not to list more than 3 per category, but I track these. And it's easy for me to do it because I capture most of these prompts are in our quarterly, some are in our monthly, and a few are in our weekly. So it's really easy for me at the end of the year to put my 4 quarters out and see what were my big wins, what were my lessons earned from that quarter. And then now at the end of the year, I'm just picking up my tops for the year. So here are a few of mine. Big wins. And again, I'm sharing mine so that it might help you think of things that, that you could reflect on. And also just to give you a kind of the thought process behind it. So big wins. I paid cash for a 3-week vacation into New Zealand, a 2020 hybrid CRV, and we renovated our kitchen. And so, being able to pay cash for all of that, I am really, I'm very proud that we were able to do that. You'll hear this next week, but our priority for 2026 is to rebuild our cash reserves. But we paid cash for all of that. And if you followed me in late 2025, you know that our kitchen was an ordeal. 11 weeks without even a sink. We had one catastrophe after another. It was just ridiculous. Another big win was Reclaim Your Workday. It has exceeded my expectations in sales and testimonials and book clubs. I'm really happy about it. Smartest decisions. Next prompt. We moved to a new scheduling platform called Breely, and the automations are incredible, and it really helped us to simplify. I also hired an ADHD coach. I do not have ADHD, but I spent 2025 learning as much as I just learning about it, and reading several books, signing up for a course. But I hired an ADHD coach to help me better understand my husband, who has ADHD, and also support my clients who have ADHD. And my best friend and RaderCo marketing specialist, Lisa, has it as well. And Lisa is my best friend and RaderCo marketing specialist. That sounded like 2 different people. But it also helped me to understand her. And so hiring that ADHD coach to be very specific about, with my questions was really, really great. Lesson earned. I waited too long for physical therapy. I tweaked myself hiking in April in New Zealand. I tried to work it out on my own. I waited until June and it made it worse. What didn't work well? We had to build a new coaching platform from the ground up because the one we used, it was called Nudge. It went out of business with pretty much no notice. And so one thing we built the platform with someone, and I onboarded my coaches way too fast. And I should have tested it myself first for a month or 2 because I ended up frustrating them. What did work well is I negotiated a deal with a friend who was a former client who wanted training for her small company, but she had a limited budget. And so I offered a price in exchange for her making 3 hot introductions for speaking. And two of the 3 have already converted. I am headed to Puerto Rico and Atlanta for those 2, and those are going to be much more long-term, I'm hoping, engagements and relationships. And I'm going to get more from that than if she would have just been able to pay me my normal rate even. So that worked out awesome. What I would do differently is one of the things is I would have rented a co-working space during the house renovation. What I do less of, I micromanaged my husband during the renovation. He was handling the projects and contractors, and there were a lot of people in and out. And I admit, I own it. I micromanaged too much. What I do more of, this was just personal. He's a professional drummer, and when he has local gigs and I go with him, I will go with him and I will sit through the load in and the sound check and then just wait. And sometimes it's like 3-4 hours. And I'm going to start Ubering to the show for like when it starts and not sitting there for 3 or 4 hours. Another question, who I helped the most? I had a few people here, but one is my client, Jim West. And that was really more who RaderCo helped the most, because he used 5 of our coaches, because we have a co-coaching platform and process. And I just absolutely loved working with him. It was so much fun. And then we also helped a little girl in Ghana named Millicent. And I'm part of the Work Meaningful Foundation, and we built a school, junior high school, there in Akramade, and currently building a tech lab. But there was one little girl that just in 2022 and in 2024, we just fell in love with her. And her name is Millicent, and we are paying for her schooling for this year. And this is going to be a gift that keeps on giving, because I know that this is not just helping Millicent. This is helping her whole family. Who helped me the most? Oh, so many people. And if I name one, I'll miss others, and people might think, oh, but what about me? So I'm only going to say the one that will not listen to this podcast, and that is Christina, the ADHD coach. So how do I do these reflections? So I did these. Usually I'll wait a little bit later in the year, but because of the way Christmas fell, I knew that I was pretty much going to be done with everything by the middle of December. So I did these very thoughtfully when I was in Scottsdale and in a hotel. And then I review the prompts with a few friends. One, and I've, again, done this for years. One is my friend Lily Farrick. We do this quarterly and annually, and she lives local to me, and so we would meet at Caribou, and then we would move to Aladdin's Eatery, and we'd start with coffee and end with lunch and do our reflections. And she's moving to Austin, so we won't do it in person anymore, but we're going to continue an abbreviated version because it takes about an hour. And then I also do this with my friend Wendy, and we've probably done it for a decade. And she uses the PowerPath prompts as the digital playbook. I use the paper version. She uses the digital. And we go through the prompts together. And I did my reflections with her right before Christmas. And but I did my prioritization and planning with her yesterday. And I'll talk more about that in the next episode. So I'm recording this on New Year's Eve, and my husband and I always do our reflections on New Year's Eve and our prioritization and planning on New Year's Day. And so I'll talk about the couples reflections in a minute, but my last reflections of the year will be with Lisa, who I've already mentioned a couple times in the podcast, BFF, RaderCo marketing, and client specialist. And we're going to do this on Friday. And we like to do these while we're walking. And we do these quarterly and annually. And I do quarterly and annually with Wendy as well. But we, just take our pages out of our playbook and we walk and talk and go through them. Now for the couples, inside the PowerPath program, I have a reflections template for couples. It's a bonus template. But you can just take some of these questions and write them on a notebook. But my husband and I have done these for about a decade. And some prompts are the same as the playbook and some are different. And when we cover big wins and lessons earned, they're more as a couple. We talk about what's working and not working for us as a couple, what we'd wished we'd done more of and less of as a couple. And we fill them out separately, and then we come together and discuss our answers. And for us, a big win as a couple was paying cash for all those big expenses that we were able to save that money and be able to do that. But a lesson earned was around the house renovation. We should have moved everything out instead of thinking that covering it in plastic would be enough, because it's not. So, with all of these, it may sound like a lot, but you don't have to do all of it. And you can pick 1 or 2 prompts and keep track. Now, a professional benefit is that when it's time for your review, this gets easy. Because for my annual reflections, I just pulled out my quarterly pages. And each quarter, I had already captured my big wins, lessons earned, smartest decisions. I narrowed them down over time, so I still remember things from early 2025 that most people have forgotten. And I just encourage you to start. Block time on your calendar. Use some of my prompts, add your own, schedule time with someone for the reflective piece. You will learn a lot about yourself, and even more by reflecting with someone else. I take notes and get ideas from every person I do this with. Stay tuned for the next episode, where I'm going to talk about the prioritization and planning piece. Thanks for listening to the Health Powered Productivity Podcast. Show notes link to every tool and takeaway. If you got value, subscribe, leave a review, and pass it along to your team. For more bite-sized tools and ways to work with RaderCo, whether through consulting, coaching, or speaking, visit helloraderco.com.